Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa, two pretty bloody close games with 29 points to 27. Home team win it and 24 points to 23. The away team winner. Both of these games were decided by tries within the last 5 minutes. If you're looking for entertainment and you're a rugby fan, I would suggest watching these games, man. It's been pretty good, even if as a Blues fan. The first one for me was a little bit brutal. Starting with that first one, Hurricanes over the Blues, 29-27. Quite a game. If I try and take my broken Blues heart out of it for a moment, I can look back on it and say it was a bloody good game. I think the lead changed 5 times in this game, if my count was correct. That's generally a sign that the product you're watching is pretty good. I mean, it can be a sign of it's like an exchange of penalties, but it wasn't in this case. And it had the added spice of the fact that Beauden Barrett was up against his brother. They're both playing the same position, and Beauden Barrett was going back to play his old team. The crowd were getting in on him. They were booing. I know some people don't like that in other parts of the world. In New Zealand, it's a thing. We boo the guys. It maybe sparked them to perform a little bit better at times, but either way, there was a bit of feeling in the game, which is what you want, right? So yeah, I was pretty happy with that either way, even if some people don't like the booing. It started with an early Blues penalty, pretty much straight from the kickoff. Laumape gave away a penalty at the breakdown, and it was 3-0 to the Blues early. But speaking of Laumape, about a minute or so later, there's a loopy pass that goes to Laumape. He's out on the left wing. He looks pretty well covered. There's defenders and there's the touchline. There's a bit of a gap, but certainly if the defenders get across and cover him, there's no way he can make it down that gap. If you haven't seen the highlights and you're not going to watch the full game, just go watch them now. They're already uploaded by I think is it the All Black site or Sanzar's site? Either way, it's on YouTube. Just search the highlights. Laumape, I think he makes eye contact with Beauden Barrett, remember, former teammates. And Beauden, I guess, hesitates for half a second, and Laumape knows he's got him. I guess Beauden needed to go in for a tackle, but he didn't do it. He held off him. Laumape put the hammer down that left wing. Beauden on the turn could not keep up with him. And then he just barreled straight over Aotearoa Black, who's another former teammate, and went over for quite the try. He showed some power and he showed some pace, did Laumape. Good decision making, 7 points to 3, first lead change. But Beauden Barrett, not to be, I guess, laughed at for that defensive misread, he scores the next try. He just goes straight through. There was he not really that much of a gap, but he dummied and opened up. He put the hammer down and he went over for a try of his own. Blues back in front, 10 points to 3. Laumape flattens Beauden. If it's like a game of tit for tat, Laumape this time runs at Beauden. Beauden goes in for the tackle. He flattens him, but Laumape can't get to the line. And the Blues, while trying to kind of slow the ball down a bit, get yellow carded. So they've got a man down. But impressively, they don't concede any points during the yellow card. They actually controlled the tempo of the game relatively well. At the early period of the yellow card, the Hurricanes seemed to be cutting the Blues defense to shreds, and they were hanging on for grim life, grim death, whatever that saying is. And they managed to hold it out. The Canes had a try denied by the TMO for a forward pass, which was pretty blatantly forward. But yeah, yellow card finishes 0-0. So the Blues kind of play the first of many get out of jail free cards in that first half, especially. Geordie hits the post with an easy penalty a bit later on. I think it's about just before the half an hour mark. So both the Barretts are kind of having a mixed performance, but remember Geordie a bit later on. He'll come back into the picture. 29 minutes. Papali'i gets a try. Neither of these sides really seemed that keen to defend mauls in this game, and that showed some pay for both sides. Papali'i goes over. The conversion. Is that the one that hit the post? Yeah, 2 conversions. That one hit the post. Bit costly. Anyway, Princep goes over for a maul try of his own. So again, it's tit for tat. Remember, I'm talking about the lead changing so many times. It's Reed Princep. That's too good. They missed the conversion for that one, so it's 15 points to 12. And the Hurricanes kick a penalty right before halftime, so it's 15 apiece. So the whole first half, Bowden getting flattened, Bowden getting a try, Lamapi running over people, Lamapi getting a try, Lamapi being held up short, forward pass, no try, all that jazz. It's all for even Stevens at halftime. But you look at the stats, how on earth were the Hurricanes not in front? Possession 68%. Territory 78%. When was the last time you've seen a halftime stat that's 78% territory in a game of like 2 equally leveled teams? You know what I mean? That's phenomenal. The Blues essentially would be under the pump. First chance they get down the Hurricanes end in that first half, they would walk away with some kind of points. I think halftime the Hurricanes had over like almost 6 minutes in the Blues 22, whereas the Blues had been in the opposite end for like a minute. So yeah. Anyway, second half, Aotearoa Black goes off. Oh, I should have mentioned both sides tackling was pretty poor, 79% for both sides in that first half. So defense was a little bit optional in the first half. That's why it was perhaps quite open and free-flowing. Defense coaches wouldn't have been happy. Aotearoa Black goes off for an HIA in the start of the second half. He takes a hit. Not sure if it's his head, but the Blues doctor checks him out and goes, he's all good. And then probably wisely, the match doctor's like, nah, you need to get checked. And he passes it, it's fine. But anyway, the Canes go for a try not long after. Dane Coles goes over. Hurricanes, big period of pressure. They finally convert the points. Perenata's pass is on point. Again, go see the highlights. This is a highlight-worthy game. And, yeah, the Hurricanes go in front. It's 22-15. But then Akira Ioane gets one for the Blues after a maul, and they've gone through some phases. Bodie kicks the conversion, so it's 22 points apiece. And then Eklund gets another try on the back of a maul. So I was talking about neither side being able to really defend the mauls. Yeah, I think TJ Perenata had conceded a pretty silly scrum penalty where he'd gone in for the ball when it was still at the back of the number 8's feet for the Blues. And then it was from that resulting penalty that the Blues, more from the penalty that the Blues were able to get the try. So it was 27 points to 22. Bodie missed the conversion pretty badly for that one after a pretty good first kick. And it's costly, man, because 76 minutes also for Amoa. It's a maul try. Mauls. It wasn't that the game wasn't entertaining. Honestly, the game was. And I can appreciate a maul as good as the next man, but sometimes you like to see a team actually stop one. The TMO checked it, but the call on the ground was it's a try, so there was nothing in that was going to overrule it. And a great, absolutely clutch pressure moment, not getting hit by a ball in the face moment from Geordie Barrett, where he kicks it and it's just perfect kick. Goes over for the conversion, so puts the Canes in front 29-27, and that's it. That's all she wrote. Blues could not come back into it. I think good game. Maybe the Canes will be a bit disappointed by the fact that they weren't able to capitalise on all the ball and whatnot they had, especially in that first half, where at times the Blues looked to be at 6s and 7s. The Blues did look to have taken a bit of a confidence dive since that loss to the Crusaders. They didn't look like to have that same swagger that they've had in the first few rounds when they were winning games. I guess losing will do that to you, but the best teams are able to bounce back. Final stats, run meters, 542 to 196, quite a disparity. Possession 65, territory 69, so the Blues improved in that second half, but were still well behind in terms of time with the ball. But I mean, it didn't make that much difference. They still managed to score almost as many points. Lineouts were both pretty solid, 84%, 92%. Tackling improved, 87% for the Canes. 81% for the Blues is a bit of an improvement, but still 81% in Super Rugby Aotearoa would be classed as low. But the Blues made 138 tackles compared to the Canes' 76. So you're almost looking at double. Tired bodies at the end, trying to stop us off more is always going to be tough. Individuals, Laumape had 133 run meters, 3 clean breaks, 5 defenders beaten. I think that might get adjusted as well. That seems a bit low. And Papali'i for the Blues had 16 out of 17 tackles. He was pretty immense. Remember, he scored a try as well. So it was a great game. Interesting, like having looked at the stats from a few of the games from Super Rugby Aotearoa, the Blues seem to be pretty comfortable playing a bit of a kicking game. So it's not necessarily you look at the position and territory and go, they were getting totally dominated. Part of it is the Blues play style, but yeah, I still think the Hurricanes probably will feel like they should have won it by more than 2. And the Blues will look back to moments where they could have won it as well. So, yeah. One final point, because that Blues midfield selection was a bit of a question, especially when you got Ngani Laumape running at you. The selection of Harry Plummer was an interesting one. Plummer had 3 tackles and 3 missed tackles, which is 50-50, which is a pretty poor rate of success for your defense. Rieko Ioane had 9 tackles and 4 missed tackles, which is better, but still not fantastic. And to be honest, that's been one area of his game. When you look at his numbers that have not been that great since his move in from the wing, his offensive numbers are usually pretty good, although I think he was kept relatively quiet in this game. His defensive numbers are getting better, but still he'd want better than 9 and 4. TJ Faine comes on and he's 4 tackles, no missed tackles. So I think maybe that selection of Plummer, it's never down to one man, but I think maybe that's one thing that us Blues fans will look back on and kind of scratch our heads and wonder why we couldn't have started with Faine, who's had a pretty solid defensive run thus far for the Blues, especially when you're up against the likes of Laumape. And Umaga Jensen was bloody good as well. So, yeah. Anyway, congratulations to the Canes. It was a great watch. And definitely a shot in the arm for those guys to get that win over the Blues after losing in round 1. So, yeah, good game. Go back and watch it if you haven't done. The next game was the Waratahs and the Brumbies. I was still kind of in a bit of shell shock from that first game where my Blues got beaten. So I probably switched off a bit in the second half as I was having a beer and maybe drowning my sorrows a little bit from that first game. But the first half was absolutely action-packed, and the majority of the points are scored in that first half. It starts off with a quick try. Cusack gets it. The Brumbies have got advantage. They do a cross kick. I think it's Harrison who bobbles the ball in goal for the Waratahs. And Cusack's over within 5 minutes. And you're thinking, man, these Waratahs are just not up to this competition level. The squad's too young. The coaching doesn't seem to be doing things right. But they came back into it pretty well, actually. And there were a lot of areas of this game where they seemed pretty good. Their scrum was quite good, which was really good. Their line-out was really impressive. So they really seemed to step things up this week. And they'll look back at this result and really be shaking their heads. Still, I think it's a positive direction for these guys. And the Brumbies have been far from that kind of dominant force that we thought they were going to be prior to the competition getting underway. By the way, when Cusack scored his try, the Brumbies had 93% possession. 93%. Ridiculous. Waratahs kick a penalty on 9 minutes. And then another one on 14 to go ahead. 6 points to 5, so they go in front. The Waratahs are bossing the Brumbies scrum on 17 minutes. Slipper fails an HIA around about that time. He was hit and then kind of lying prone for a long time. I don't know what the deal was with the medical staff, but eventually, because the play goes on, Slipper gets back up and tries to defend. I think he's actually the one who concedes the penalty. But he's immediately taken off for an HIA. But, man, heaven forbid something happened to him before they were able to get him off, because he eventually got back up and got back into play. That probably shouldn't have happened, because he was on the ground for quite some time, looking really groggy. There's no way he should have been getting up to get back. I know he wants to help out his team, but the medical staff needed to tell him to just sit for a minute, because they needed to check him out. He failed the HIA, he didn't come back, which was pretty bad news for the Brumbies. Waratahs, though, missed the penalty a few minutes later. And eventually, though, the Waratahs are putting all kinds of pressure on. The Brumbies are getting warned for all the penalties they're conceding. And Muirhead gets yellow carded. I think it was like playing the halfback or a sneaky little hand at the breakdown or something. When they were under pressure, so it was a pretty cynical one. So deserved yellow card, and immediately the Waratahs, they go on the attack, and sure enough, Horton gets a try for the Tars on 24 minutes. There's a good maul. They seem to have held them all up, which was something they were incapable of seemingly being able to do in this game. But then he just peels off the back of it. Nobody's there. Over for a try, and he seemed genuinely chuffed to get it. Why wouldn't he be? And not long later, James Ram gets his try. And that one's a proper bit of switching off, not being at that kind of professional level, because the Waratahs get a penalty. They take the tap quickly. Ram calls for it. He's in line with the kicker. They kick it back into the corner, and he's running it in for a try. You're thinking they're just going to call for the tee and go for a shot at goal and maybe kick for touch, but you should be paying attention. So caught napping the Brumbies, and within no time, they were they were well down. I think it was 20 points to 5, so that scored 14 points in the yellow card period. So pretty bad news for the Brumbies. It got worse when Aotearoa went off with a leg injury. Not sure how serious that'll be, but yeah, pretty disconcerting, especially seeing as they'd already lost Slipper. They did come back into the game, though, the Brumbies. They got held up. It looked like maybe we were going to go back for a dropout. It was Faenga, but the TMO checked it, and they were like, no, that's actually a try. So good news for the ref for actually checking it. They missed a conversion, so it's 20 points to 10, and then immediately, kind of quick fire tries. The Brumbies do the same thing. Valtini gets a quick fire try. The Brumbies just had good go for a ball right down the left wing, looked really dangerous, and then you're not going to stop Valtini from that far out. So yeah, half time, it's 20 points to 17. Weird game. All Brumbies, they get a try, then they're kind of under the pump, get yellow carded. All Waratahs, they get a couple of tries, and then Brumbies come back to 15 men, all the momentum, and yeah, it's really tight at half time. Possession and territory were pretty even. The Brumbies had 60% territory, but the possession was more even. Run meters 165, Brumbies 111. Tars, penalties needed 5 Tars, 7 Brumbies. So not that much in it in the stats, and the scoreboard was kind of reflecting that. Second half, there's not a lot of points scoring compared to that first half, where it was just an absolute flurry. Maddox is making mistakes. He's got a bit of Geordie Barrett about him, in that he can be on fire one week and just shelling the ball like a guy. It doesn't seem like a guy who's paid to catch and kick a ball and whatnot. Like end of the first half, he's dropped a ball cold in front of his own goal line. Start of the second half, he tries to keep a ball in, but ends up just walking over the touchline. Yeah, kind of poor stuff. But the Waratahs did kick a penalty, so they went out to 23 points to 17. But that's the last points they score. And this is on like 49 minutes. They did miss another penalty later on. Maddox had a 50-22, but they lost the line out. So he was doing good things as well. It wasn't just the stuff-ups. And then, yeah, there's a bit of back and forth. But the next real big moment is Fines' try. And it's a proper game breaker, because the Tars are obviously a bit tired. They're under heaps of pressure. And yeah, finds the reserve halfback, makes a bit of a sniping run. He first kind of moves towards the referee. Referee does well there to get out of his way. I think the Waratahs were complaining about that a little bit, but I don't think that was a factor. He just went between two of the Tars players. The hole was just enough there. A couple of tired legs. I think it was Swinton and Harris. Yeah, he just managed to snipe between them, and sure enough, the Brumbies got the conversion to make it 24 points to 23. With about 2 minutes to go. Brumbies secure the short kickoff and manage successfully to run down the clock all the way until the hooter, and then they kick it out. So, massive comeback win from the Brumbies. You're down 20 points to 5. Looking kind of dead and buried, but they did it. They'll be a bit disappointed with the goal kicking, because they scored 4 tries and the Tars only managed 2. But it was only 1 point in it, and I had to wait right till the death. I think their goal kicking was at 50%. The Tars were at 71%. So Tars will look back on it. Few opportunities, few tackles missed. penalty missed, you know what I mean? Could have made a difference, but is what it is. I think overall, if you're a Tars fan, you should still be pretty happy with the way the team seems to be kind of coming right, especially with all those young guys. So run meters 402 to the Brumbies, 231 to the Tars. So the Brumbies dominated the traditional stats. They had more territory, 57%, more possession, 58%. Their line out though was shocking, 63%. The Tars were at 90. The penalties conceded 13 by the Tars, 10 by the Brumbies. Tackling percentages were quite impressive. 89% Tars, 90% Brumbies. 158 tackles for the Tars, 120 for the Brumbies. So kind of goes hand in hand with the Brumbies having a bit more possession, but that's pretty satisfying numbers. Yeah, compared to like the 79% in the first half for these teams. But yeah, Robertson and Hooper made 15 tackles for the Tars. Proper good defensive shift from them. Muirhead, despite his yellow card, 91 run meters, 4 defenders beaten. But yeah, interesting couple of games. Obviously pretty disappointed for my Blues. But them's the breaks. They came pretty close. Much changed lineup. And yeah, the biggest winners from that one are perhaps the Crusaders. For the Waratahs and the Brumbies, a good close game. Grandstanding finish. Big period with no points being scored. But yeah, first half especially was just absolute pandemonium. So if you haven't seen these games, definitely worth a watch. I'll probably stick a bit at the end of the video for how you can watch the games on ESPN Plus in full, on demand or live if you want, because I think these games, if you've got $4.99 a month, are worth watching. If you haven't got a VPN, it'll be a bit harder to set up, but it's still doable. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'm going to go to bed. Talk to you again soon. See you later. Right, guys, so if you are looking to get your fix on rugby and it's Super Rugby Aotearoa or Super Rugby AU that you want to watch, ESPN Plus seems to be the best option out there in terms of pricing, because they're at $4.99 American per month. However, you have to live in America. If you don't, you can do what I'm doing here and use a VPN. The one I use is ExpressVPN. The link for that is down in the description. There's like a sign-up code for 3 months free if you go for a year, 30-day money-back guarantee and all that jazz. But give it a crack. Connect to a server in America. That's what I'm doing here. I'm on Seattle. And when you go to a site like this one, ESPN Plus, so ESPN.com/ESPN Plus, instead of getting a page error like this one, you will actually get the content which Americans would be able to see, because you're kind of now technically in America. So like, I've already got an ESPN Plus account. You can see here, you know, sign up for $4.99 a month. If you click that, it'll take you through to a standard sign up page. You know, you've got to give your name, you've got to give your email address and a credit card. I think you can use PayPal as well, but when I tried PayPal, it didn't work. I used the credit card. I think the one thing you might have to do is Google a American postcode. I had to Google an American postcode to be able to sign up. But essentially, you sign up, and it's $4.99 a month. Once you're signed up, you get into your account, like I'm in my account here. It's got all the stuff. It's got some UFC. Anything with ESPN Plus in the corner of the image is the stuff that you can stream. So it looks like there's some like FA Cup stuff and some movies like Bruce Lee. There's some UFC, other stuff like Serie A, football if you're into that. But basically what I'm into is the rugby. So I'm going to the magnifying glass, typing rugby. And the only rugby that's on at the moment is Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. So as I record this, here are the upcoming games. In this first row, you can see all to see the full list. And then here are the on-demand games if you want to go back and watch them. If you missed them live or you just want to go back and watch them. So you can see all to see the previous ones as well. So yeah, man, it's pretty much as simple as that. If you click on an upcoming one, it's going to tell you it hasn't started yet. If you want to watch it live, you can at the start time. If you want to watch it on demand, you just go here and watch it on demand. You do have to be a little bit careful with, see, these duplicated ones. You want the ESPN Plus one, not the ESPN2 one. That's the only kind of word of advice that I would give. But yeah, guys, ESPN Plus using the VPN. As I said, link to the VPN in the description if you want to give that a crack. As I said, it's got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so give it a try, and if you don't like the way it works, you can just get a refund. But Simple as that, guys. Talk to you again soon. See you later.